My name is Luke Aldridge. I am interviewing Vietnam veteran Gerald Eubank, who served in the Army starting in 1961 and was stationed in Vietnam from November 1966 to November 1967. Mr. Eubank, this interview will have 4 sections: your life before service, basic training, your time in Vietnam, and your life after service. So let's get started with your background. Where did you grow up and what was your area known for?
I basically grew up in Roanoke, Virginia. My area was a railroad town. And so I went to school there, finished grade school and high school, and then traveled 54 miles up the Shenandoah Valley to the Virginia Military Institute, where I spent 4 years.
Were you born in Roanoke?
No, I was born in New York City. And did a lot of traveling with my mother and father, and eventually wound up in Roanoke. And I considered Roanoke home since I guess my formidable years, high school and then college in Lexington. So Virginia's always been my home.
Could you tell me about your family growing up?
I grew up as an only child. I had a older brother who died when he was 2 years old. And so basically my life was as an only child. Was I spoiled? It depends on the definition of spoiled. My mother and father tended not to spoil me. My grandmother did. So I grew up being spoiled by my grandmother.
And what was your dad's job?
My dad traveled for sales, basically. He introduced various new products to the industry, and that was why I lived in Europe. He was introducing Coca-Cola to the European market.
Do you have any memories of your father or other men around you telling war stories from World War II?
My mother had brothers. All of her brothers served in World War II. 2 were in the Army. 2 were in the Army Air Corps. 1 was in the Navy. And they did not really influence me in any way, but I did grow up knowing that they had served in World War II. One uncle who was a ball turret gunner on a Liberator, I was very close to. So I learned a lot about the military talking to him. My other uncles, the one in the Navy didn't talk about it because he was stationed in the Pacific with the Seabees. And I guess he witnessed or went through some things that, and I guess back then nobody said anything about PTSD, but I would make the assumption that that's what he had, but he never discussed it. Never discussed his service at all.
Did you have a favorite World War II movie growing up?
Favorite World War II movie growing up? Oh, gracious. I've got to think, because most of the time we watched Westerns. I'm trying to think of a World War II movie back when I was growing up. You know, probably the only movie that I can remember was about men after the service, and it was a movie called The Best Years of Our Lives. And it chronicled those people that had served and had come back to establish their life after World War II. And one of the individuals in the movie had lost his arms and legs. And I forget his name, but he was in the movie as an actual actor. And I think, as I look back on that, I think of that movie, The Best Years of Our Lives, as something that transitioned to my life after Vietnam, when you think about it. But I can't think of a World War II movie that I would see 15 times. The only movie I have seen probably 15 times is Casablanca, and that's it.
You mentioned Westerns. Did you watch any John Wayne?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. A lot of Lash LaRue, John Wayne, Roy Rogers, Gene Autry, Hopalong Cassidy, that whole crew from back in the early 50s.
A lot of Vietnam veteran memoirs mention John Wayne as an influence on their expectations of war. Do you remember John Wayne that way?
Not really. I remember him in movies after Vietnam, but I don't remember him as a basic influence. I can't say that he had any influence on me in that respect.
Before Vietnam, where did you go to college and what did you study?
I went to Virginia Military Institute and I majored in history. History and Spanish. That was my dual major. And that was it. I participated on the rifle team, enjoyed intramural sports.
And when were you there?
I was there in 1957, 1961.
And you were part of the ROTC?
I was, at that time, VMI had Air Force and Army ROTC. Now, of course, it's Navy, Army, Air Force. And many graduates enter the Marine Corps. And back when I was a cadet at VMI, they had what was known as the platoon leaders course, and it was something you would be taking Army ROTC, but you would also take Marine Corps training on the side, and you could commission in the Marines at the end of 4 years.
Well, I'd like to move on to the start of your service and basic training. Would you describe yourself as volunteering being commissioned or drafted?
Volunteering being commissioned, because back at that time, there wasn't an option at BMI. When you finished 4 years, unless you were medically unqualified, you got a commission. So I was looking forward to my commission. I didn't know how long I'd stay in the Army, but I was looking forward to serving.
And why did you join the ROTC?
It was mandatory, and I chose Army over Air Force, so that was basically it. It was mandatory, it was a requirement, and so it fit my personality.
Once the Vietnam War escalated in 1965, did you expect to go to Vietnam?
I volunteered. I volunteered to go to Vietnam in 1963, 64, 65 too, but and I wound up in 66.
And what spurred that decision on?
The unit I was assigned to was going to deploy to Vietnam, so I deployed with the unit and was happy about it because I'd been wanting to go.
Did you always plan to be in the military?
I hadn't planned to make it a career, making the military a career, you really have to sit down and decide what's best for you in life. It's like anything, any job that you're willing to do and know you're going to be doing it for an extended period of time. Oddly enough, I volunteered to become a regular Army officer when I initially went in and was commissioned. I was commissioned as a reserve officer, so I was in the Army Reserve. And I was in the Army Reserve while I was in Vietnam. So while I was in Vietnam, I enjoyed what I was doing. I enjoyed the military, the Army. So I put in my paperwork to become a regular Army officer. And I was selected and became a regular Army officer probably 8 months after I came back from Vietnam.
What, if anything, did you know about the country of Vietnam before you arrived in 1966?
I knew basically it was in Southeast Asia. I had studied Southeast Asia. I had studied the French, the Battle of Dien Bien Phu. So I was familiar with the topography of the country. I had served in Korea, so I had been in Asian countries, so it wasn't a big shock to me except when I got there and found out how hot it was, or the rainy season.
Well, that's a perfect time to move on to your time in Vietnam. Did anything stick out to you about your flight to Vietnam?
No, there wasn't anything ordinary, just out of the ordinary. It was just a C-140 one-star lifter, had a Travis Air Force Base, California, into Benoit, Vietnam.
Could you describe your first 24 to 48 hours in country?
The first 24, 48 hours was a period of acclimation. You needed to acclimate basically to the climate and the time change. So your body is going to have to adjust not only to the time, but it's going to adjust to the climate. And it was hot. It was hot. And so I think that was the biggest initial adjustment was getting used to the heat and the time. And that was probably 24, 48 hours. Probably took a little bit longer than 48 to really get your body adjusted.
You mentioned studying a little bit about Vietnam. What did you expect when you arrived based on your studies or TV or stories you'd heard?
I don't think I expected anything out of the ordinary. I expected to be in combat. I expected guns going off over my head. I expected an enemy. I expected to do my job as it was given to me. So that was basically it.
Had you been in combat before going to Vietnam?
I'll beg off of that one.
Okay. When you were in Vietnam, would you describe yourself as being in combat, in the rear, or something else?
In combat, in the rear, I guess you could say both.
And what kind of work did you do?
I did a lot of work with the Air Force, controlling ranch hand, sky spot, and arc light missions that the Air Force flew. I flew UE helicopter missions. I flew Dong Tam in the Delta. That was one of the reasons we went over the division, and So I had the responsibility of taking the first American troops into the Delta, because the only thing that had been down there was MACV, Military Assistance Command, and Special Forces. So this was the first contingent of American troops, and what they had done basically was they had cut out a camp where you could turn boats around. One unit of the 9th Infantry Division was afloat with the Navy on the USS Benoit, and it was called the Mobile Riverine Force. And their action was to get air cushion vehicles and go into the tributaries off of the Mekong to search out the Viet Cong. And then their base camp was at Dongtam. So it was a turnaround. They had like a lagoon, you turned the boats around. Interesting. If you ever meet any of the brown shoe Navy guys at a Mobile Riverine Force, they can fill you in on a very interesting concept of the war. Vietnam was a very strange war. I guess if you go back and think about Robert McNamara, who was the Secretary of Defense at that time, you'd have to go back to something he wrote in 1995. He wrote a memoir called In Retrospect, where he thought Vietnam we'd really messed up. And you had to look at it, new concepts going forward, like the Mobile Riverine Force, to search and destroy the Viet Cong in the Delta off the Mekong River. And at the same time, you had a new set of forces coming in, the Special Forces, the Green Berets, because Kennedy was the key behind that concept. And Vietnam was a different war. We were fighting in a triple canopy jungle, an enemy that could disappear in the flash of an eye. And again, you needed to have the you needed special forces, but you also needed to have the wherewithal to fight in a jungle environment. And somewhere along the line, from the island hopping campaign in the Pacific against the Japanese during World War II, what we should have taken from that, we could have incorporated into initially fighting in Vietnam. So it was different. And I enjoyed what I did. Mm-hmm. I enjoyed dropping a lot of bombs.
How would you describe the people you served with in terms of economic background, race, or religion?
The people I served with were average Joes. Whether we were college, ROTC, or whether they were warrant officer helicopter pilots, or enlisted personnel, they were all, average. And they were grunts and young.
And how diverse were they? Were they mostly white?
No, I wouldn't say that. I'd say that there was a good mix, at least the units I was in, there was a good mix of personnel. Now, some of the units a couple were heavy on white, but I think that was basically because of the unit.
And was it a mix of Northerners and Southerners, or?
Yeah. There was no difference in that. When Vietnam was there, most of your camps here, posts in the United States, Fort Bragg, Fort Benning, a lot of them built what were called Vietnam villages, where they trained the young soldiers anticipating deployment to Vietnam. So, no, you had a good mix. You had a good mix.
Did you work alongside any women, either Vietnamese or American?
None. None. The only women I knew were, I guess, a couple of nurses, but mostly the Red Cross young ladies that distributed cookies, and the troops. They're trying to get them recognized for the significant impact that they had in Vietnam. It would be nice to recognize all of them.
How did living in Vietnam and meeting Vietnamese people affect you?
The ones that I met that weren't shooting at me, cordial. Cordial. That's about it.
Could you expand on that a little bit?
It changed when I returned to the States. It wasn't that there was a dislike, it was that there was a distrust. Now I need to expand on that distrust, don't I? The VC could be a little kid, or the VC could be a young woman, or the VC could be an old man, old woman, young man. You didn't know. You couldn't say you're a VC. And the distrust was, I didn't know if they were VC. It was something that was ingrained in your mind. And you come back to the States, and I remember my high school students used to say, the colonel's moving, where he's sitting. And somebody would say, well, why? And they said, well, a Vietnamese couple came in and sat behind him. Now, that was strange, but it was something I did. I probably don't do it now, but I did back then.
Do you remember any distinct animals during your time in Vietnam?
Yeah, I sure do. Snakes. Yeah. Yeah, I had a pet python.
Really?
Yeah. And a monkey. So you can't, you got to have something. So you have a monkey and a python. The python you go feed chickens to. Yeah.
And were there a lot of animals and pets on base?
No, I think, a few monkeys. I'm trying to remember if I ever saw a dog.
So you were special with your python and monkey?
Oh yeah, I just, put them in a cage, put the python in a cage. Yeah, didn't hurt anybody.
Nobody asked any questions?
Nobody asked any questions.
All right. Did you experience any culture shock in Vietnam?
No, because I'd served in Asian countries, so I didn't expect the culture shock. I'd been in Korea, been in Hong Kong, Kowloon. No.
If you don't mind me asking, when were you in Korea and Hong Kong?
Korea, 63, 64. Hong Kong, off and on.
Did you personally encounter the Viet Cong?
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. When somebody's shooting at you, I guess you personally encountered them. Yeah. Yeah. But, and I'd seen them from the air. I had, yeah, I'd flown a combat air patrol with the Air Force, which is kind of strange because I was an Army captain and I probably shouldn't have done what I did, but the Air Force Lieutenant Colonel I worked with asked me if I wanted to go on a flight, and I said, okay, yeah, that sounds like fun. So I went on a combat air patrol in a fighter, flying right seat, and we got pulled off of our air patrol to put close air support for troops on the ground that were receiving fire from an occupied base camp, VC camp. So we went in on that, and I saw a lot of VC. It was a way of strafing the base camp and dropping. Yeah, I saw a lot of.
How often would you say did you encounter the VC?
Not that frequently. Went on missions. Might run in on missions, I might not.
And how often would you say you were in combat?
That's hard to, I was in combat most of the time. Yeah, that'd be hard to say on a how many day basis, you know. It fluctuated, but I would say a lot.
Do you remember seeing Agent Orange being sprayed?
Yeah, that's probably why I go to the dermatologist a lot. Yeah, it's, you know, it's kind of crazy, but we needed the ranch hand missions. As I said before, we were fighting in what would be called triple canopy jungle. And you can't see. When you're above that jungle, it is extremely difficult to see the ground. So you need to clear. So what's the best way to clear it is you defoliate. What's the best defoliant? Agent Orange. Little did we know then what the effects were going to be in later life. I'm on the I'm on the Agent Orange registry. There's a registry for people. But no, we dropped it like it would rain.
So would you say you were concerned at the time about Agent Orange?
No, I had no concern because I didn't even know what, you know, I didn't know what the ramifications were going to be. It was Agent Orange. We just called it Agent Orange because it was in orange drums. But no, we used it for defoliation missions. And that's what the prime purpose was, to defoliate the jungle. And I can remember as a kid, I worked for a tree company, and we cleared power lines. And we used probably the same thing to defoliate along the power lines to keep the trees from growing over them. So, you know, I didn't think twice about it. I've been exposed to defoliation as a teenager. So,
how often were you in contact with Agent Orange?
Not that often. I'd see it, I'd be around the flight line they were loading, but that was it. You know, I didn't make it a point to go out when they were going to drop it.
Were you a part of the Agent Orange studies?
Yeah. But I suffer with skin cancers more than anything else. But no, so far so good.
What were some of the ways you coped with the war?
There?
Yes.
Drank a lot. Yeah. When I had the availability, when I had the time, I drank. Drank a lot.
How did people around you cope with the war?
Drank. Yeah, it's, you know, we drank, we played poker when we had the time. You didn't have that much downtime. There was always something going on, something you had to do. But when you had the downtime, you drank.
What was the most memorable friendship you had during your time in Vietnam?
I didn't have any friends. I didn't have any friendships. I didn't make any friends. I didn't want any friends. You make friends, friends get killed. If you have a friend, you tend to worry about a friend. When you don't have any friends, you don't have to worry about them. So I just never made friends. I was a loner.
What was the most beautiful thing you saw in Vietnam?
I don't think I saw anything beautiful in Vietnam. I'm told if I'd go back now, I'd probably appreciate the country. It's extremely beautiful. But as I told somebody, I had no reason to go back there. I'd been there. I didn't have to pay to go. I'm not going to pay a travel agent to go see it this time.
Who did you write to or receive letters from when you were in Vietnam?
My second wife. And I wrote to my father on occasion, once or twice. But that was it. Nobody else.
Were there any other ways you communicated with friends and family back in the U.S.?
No. None.
Do you remember any American TV shows or songs from your time in Vietnam?
None. From my time in Vietnam? No. Oh, I never saw a TV. No, didn't see a TV. I'm trying to recall. No, none. And songs? I don't remember any songs.
Do you have any memories of USO shows or recreation on base?
The USO shows, one of them, Bob Hope. Yeah, that's the only show, and I caught part of it from the rear, and that was it, but nothing else.
What was your most expensive or frequent purchase at the PX?
I only made one purchase at the PX. It was a Diamond Omega ladies wristwatch that I bought for my wife. That was it.
Did you buy any Vietnamese souvenirs?
None. Do I have any? Yes. I do have, I still have the Vietnamese flag, VC flag that I captured. I still have that. I keep it. But no, I didn't buy anything.
And where did you get the flag?
In the jungle.
Okay. Well, that's the end of my service questions. Is there another story we haven't talked about from your time in Vietnam you'd like to share?
I really can't think. I enjoyed, and that may sound foolish and stupid. You're in war. People are shooting at you, and you enjoy what you're doing. And I think the one time that I had to go, or that I did go in, and I shouldn't have gone into the jungle, was when I had a B-52 strike on an occupied Viet Cong base. And they were dropping, well, they can drop 700 and 1,000-pound bombs, but I think I put 500s, and they were carpet bombing. And I did a BDA, bomb damage assessment, and watching the VC that were impacted by that airstrike left an indelible memory of don't be under a bomb. Don't be under, that was impacting.
Let's talk about your post-service life.
Okay.
What relationship in your life was most changed by your service?
I think family. I think that was the biggest. It's always been an issue. I was very closed. No conversation. I eliminated all conversation, I think. I didn't want to talk about anything. I wanted basically just to be left alone. I drank. That didn't decrease considerably. I had mood swings. I finally recognized that I needed to get rid of the bottle, and I did. It was just like when I quit smoking, I threw them away. I did the same thing with the bottle, and that was an important thing. It might not have been to anybody else, but it was important to me that I was able to just turn away from the alcohol on my own. But I still was moody. You recognize that there's something wrong, but you don't know what that wrong is, and you're afraid to go ask somebody what's wrong with you. And I think back then, and even for many years, the idea that somebody had a mental issue, that somebody suffered from what was to be PTSD, was frowned upon. Oh, look at him. He's got issues. So I kind of backed off. I hid everything. And I hid it for a number of years. I didn't get out of the Army until 1989, in September of '89. But I just hid things until 1990, when I finally I was to the VA and went to the psychiatrist and underwent psychiatric treatment for PTSD. And I'm 85 years old, and I still go once a month to see my therapist so I can sit down and talk with somebody, because I don't talk. I've been married 3 times, and I didn't talk to my second wife, and was married to her for 45 years. And I'm currently my 3rd wife, and we've been married 14 years. And she's held me at night when I've sweated. But we don't talk.
We're very grateful for you talking with us today.
It's hard. Unfortunately, most of my life is still in Vietnam. I don't know about other guys, but I know mine is. And it's just very, very difficult. You know. And if I didn't have, you know, I have my therapist. And like I said, my wife won't push things. Neither one of my wives, my second wife, died. And even in the 45 years we were married, she never questioned, never pushed. She basically understood, and that was good. But I went for the counseling. And if you didn't have the counseling, I don't think it'd be any good.
Thank you very much for sharing that.
You're welcome. Yeah. Yeah, you got to have it. The VA, there are a lot of good things. There are also a lot of bad things. But their counseling is good. I've done it at Myrtle Beach. I've done it up in Anderson. And I've done it here. And I've always had good counselors. I'm appreciative of that.
Can you tell me about going back to college as a veteran in 1968?
That was interesting, but yeah. But fortunately, I went with other vets. So, you know, it was okay. We commiserated. No, it was good. Just going back to school, get my master's. So.
Where did you go?
Pepperdine University. So, got my master's there, and I went to Sophia University in Tokyo, Japan.
What did you expect on campus as a Vietnam veteran?
Nothing really. I got more on campus when I was on ROTC duty after Vietnam than as a student. No, everything was good. No problems. No.
You were on ROTC?
Yeah, I was on ROTC duty at the University of Delaware, 1968. And that was interesting because that was a tough period of time. That was Tet. The Tet Offensive was 1968, and we were suffering 68, 69. So there'd be some dissident individuals, but oddly enough, most of the dissident individuals were people off the street, not basically the students on campus. But they were interesting. Students on campus, I got along with pretty well. I taught down campus, in fact. I taught classes in the academic buildings as opposed to the ROTC department. And I taught counterinsurgency warfare and military law. And a lot of times, the regular students who weren't ROTC would stop in. And I didn't care. But no, my on campus was a rewarding experience.
Did you know any anti-war veterans?
I don't think so. Just a lot of people shouting. That would be basically it. But personal individuals, no, I didn't know anybody personally.
Were you aware of active duty military personnel who opposed the war?
No. I'm sure there was some out there, but I didn't know
Have you been to the wall in D.C.?
Oh, yeah,
What do you think about it?
tough. Tough. I used to take my AP history students, if they wanted to, wherever they wanted to go on spring break, I made it possible for them to take a trip. And many times we would go to Washington. And if you're going to Washington, you've got to take in the wall. They would leave me. Because it's even the wall they travel around the country with. It's tough. And Washington is definitely. You see that wall and those names. You know. It was a stupid war.
What do you think about the design of the memorial?
Oh, I think it's beautiful. Yeah.
Do you remember it being controversial?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I remember that. But, you know, I throw it out the window. Don't worry about it.
All right, this is my last question. Do you have a favorite book, poem, or movie about Vietnam?
Book, poem, or movie? Poem? No, I can't even think of one. Book. Can't think of one. A book. Movie. I forget the name of it. It was a John Wayne movie about the Special Forces. I guess that's probably one of my favorites.
Was that the Green Berets?
Yeah. Yeah, that's probably my favorite. Barry Sadler's song, The Ballad of Green Berets. I can't think of another movie. I've never seen Platoon. A lot of those movies that Oliver Stone did, I did not see because I didn't like them. Didn't like what I heard or read about them, so I didn't see them.
What did you like about the Green Berets?
Like the story. It was true. It was kind of factual, you know.